A major beauty school operator recently agreed to pay $2.8 million to settle a class action lawsuit. The dispute centered on whether students working in a public clinic were actually providing the school with unpaid janitorial and administrative labor. For decades, the economic engine of the American beauty education sector has relied on these school-operated public clinics. These environments are designed as a trade-off. Students gain practical experience by providing discounted haircuts, chemical treatments, and aesthetic services to the public. However, recent federal litigation has forced the industry to confront a precise boundary, the point where a legitimate educational clinic morphs into an illegal use of unpaid student labor. This tension is often obscured by two common misconceptions. Operators frequently assume that all student work is legally shielded by the school's accreditation, while critics argue that any service performed for a paying customer constitutes wage theft. Under federal law, the answer is found in the economic reality of the student's training environment, rather than the commercial volume or busyness of the clinic floor. The federal framework for this issue is the Fair Labor Standards Act, or FLSA. This is the law the Department of Labor uses to govern minimum wage and employee classification. Under the FLSA, vocational students practicing their craft to earn academic credit are generally exempt from being classified as statutory employees. To maintain this exemption, courts apply a 7-factor framework known as the primary beneficiary test to determine the true economic reality of the student-institution relationship. The core principle of the test is to identify who gains the most from the work. If the student receives the primary benefit through academic credit and technical skill acquisition, they do not require compensation. The primary beneficiary test serves as the legal dividing line for public-facing clinics, as the specific way a school structures its daily clinic operations determines whether it is building a classroom or a liability. To see how this test is applied, we can track a single cosmetology student through 2 different clinical scenarios. In Scenario A, a student is assigned to perform a mandatory chemical color application on a live volunteer. The school maintains direct pedagogical oversight. A licensed instructor guides the formulation and periodically monitors the application to ensure safety protocols are met. The student receives state-mandated academic credit for this service, fulfilling a specific milestone required for graduation. After the service, the student cleans their immediate station. This specific task is a requirement of state board sanitation testing standards. While the patron pays a $25 fee, the school discloses that this covers the chemical supplies and facility overhead, rather than purchasing a guaranteed commercial result. Because the work fulfills a documented educational requirement under supervision, the student is the primary beneficiary, and the clinic remains compliant with FLSA exemptions. Now, consider Scenario B. In this timeline, the student has already mastered their color competencies, but the school books them for back-to-back appointments to meet daily revenue targets. The instructor remains in an administrative office, providing negligible oversight during these repetitive commercial services. Following the appointments, the school requires the student to spend 3 hours washing bulk facility laundry and operating the reception register. This specific fact pattern was addressed by the Sixth Circuit in the case of Eberlein v. Douglas J. Holdings, Inc. The ruling established a doctrine known as segmentation. This allows courts to separate non-educational tasks from the broader academic relationship, to see who is truly benefiting from those specific hours. When students spend several hours a day sweeping or doing laundry, they are displacing paid janitorial and administrative staff. During these segmented blocks of time, the educational value is negligible. This shifts the primary benefit of the labor from the student to the school. It was this practice, replacing paid staff with unpaid students for operational tasks, that led to the $2.8 million settlement. While clinical practice is educationally protected, assigning routine operational labor to offset business overhead shifts the economic reality and removes the legal protections provided by the student's trainee status. Beyond federal wage law, schools must also comply with state mandates, such as those enforced here by the Commonwealth of Kentucky. State statutes classify a beauty school as an educational institution rather than a retail salon, regardless of the volume of patrons served. There are strict safety boundaries. In Kentucky, students are prohibited from performing chemical services on the public until they complete 250 hours of foundational instruction. State regulations also mandate specific consumer transparency inside the clinic area. For example, Kentucky requires a sign in the reception area stating, "Work done by students only," with letters a minimum of 1 inch in height. This disclosure ensures volunteer models understand they are in a supervised learning environment, which alters the liability regarding commercial aesthetic outcomes. Despite these disclosures, schools still retain non-waivable legal duties regarding infection control and non-negligent supervision during every student-patron interaction. Failing to maintain this state-mandated transparency not only violates local code, but also weakens the school's defense if a federal wage and hour dispute arises. The operational risks of student clinics are now meeting intense pressure from federal education authorities. The National Advisory Committee on Institutional Quality and Integrity, or NASAQI, serves as the federal gatekeeper for student aid eligibility. In July 2026, NASAQI voted 9-3 to recommend that the U.S. Department of Education deny the renewal of recognition for NACAS, one of the sector's largest accreditors. The committee reviewers cited concerns over high student debt levels, poor graduation rates, and weak institutional oversight across member schools. This advisory action signals a period of high accountability for the traditional debt-heavy beauty school model, forcing institutions to rethink their financial and operational structures. In response, some schools are pivoting toward alternative models that prioritize out-of-pocket affordability and operate independently of federal student loans. Transitioning to a legally sound, ethical clinic involves implementing a specific set of operational best practices. First, schools must document a direct pedagogical connection between every clinical assignment and a state-mandated learning objective. Second, operators must audit daily schedules to ensure that non-educational operational labor, like sweeping or laundry, remains in the small doses necessary for salon management training. Third, institutions should utilize state-approved mannequin-based competency pathways. This prevents students from facing academic delays when public clinic volume is low. Offering these alternatives ensures students are progressing through their education based on their skill development, not on the clinic's need for retail labor. Finally, schools should implement explicit informed consent protocols for all volunteer models to ensure complete fee transparency. By centering student choice and documented academic milestones, the beauty education sector can move toward a model where the learning objective always supersedes the clinic's bottom line.